Ego. This topic is confusing for so many people. What is ego? They say ego is bad. In reality, from standpoint of Vedanta philosophy, I consciousness, that is pure ego, pure awareness that I am, that is closest to Atman or Brahman. It is most desirable thing. One wants to go to the source, which is I consciousness. But when that I consciousness is identified with body, senses, mind or intellect, then it becomes contaminated. Here in this book, Reality Here and Now, written in 1996, when ego is purified, one develops sattvic ego. Western psychology recommends building the ego, while Eastern mystics recommend renouncing the ego. And there is much further explanation. Why is there conflict? Western psychologists say build the ego. They mean build up your self-confidence. Don't be weak. Don't be pushed around by others or the society or your emotions. Build up the strength within. That is what they call building the ego. When Eastern mystics say give up the ego, that means you build the ego fully until you are content. You have found everything, and then you have no more attraction for the world. Ego falls away. This is called renunciation of ego. In this book, Personal to Global Transformation, written in 2007, I have elaborated the topic. So people say ego is good or bad. Matter of fact, there is a process, and the process is unconscious living, that is lack of ego. One lives on the street, one is pushed around, one doesn't have enough food, one is weakling, one is like jellyfish. This is very low stage, and at this stage people feel very blissful because this is the bliss of ignorance. Animals are blissful because they have no ego, bliss of ignorance. Then one becomes unhappy with all the control, then they want to control to have better food, better living condition, respect. This is development of ego. Then one attains it, that is developed ego. And then one goes further, purifies the ego, not only being content and happy for himself, but shares it with others. That is purified ego. And when one expands the ego, it is the bliss experience. And there is a highest state, which is very hard to conceive for average person, is dissolution of ego, supreme bliss, that one becomes an instrument of God to serve humanity. He surrenders to the will of God. He flows with the life with a childlike quality. He experiences supreme bliss. This is a transcendental state of bliss. So person who are totally at lower stage of consciousness, they are asleep, ignorant, they have bliss of ignorance. In between there is suffering because of knowledge. When the climax of supreme knowledge, one finds bliss of knowledge. In this chart, the lower stage is being under the control of the world, that is tamasic state. When you cultivate the strength of your body, senses and mind, you become master of your life, you control your world, you become wealthy, prosperous, you have fame, power. But this is rasic ego which binds you. So when you rise above it, don't get caught into desires, greed, jealousy, attachment. Rise above it. When you feel content, then you rise above the ego, that is called sattvic ego. And sattvic ego helps you to share with the world, find joy in the world. And ultimately, the highest state is you dissolve ego totally, rise above tamasic, rasic and sattvic. So you have no ego at all. You are working as an instrument of God, and that is the highest kind of state called gunatita state, beyond control of nature. Nature controls you with three states: tamas, rajas, sattva. This is the highest state. For average person, it's better to be active and successful in the world than to be lazy and content. It is still better to find contentment and share with others than being successful for yourself. So these are the stages of evolution. People become escapist because they don't want to work hard in the world. They want to enter the college without graduating from school. So world gives us the experiences to learn the lesson about who I am. And when we learn the lesson, we graduate from high school and become worthy to enter spiritual life of sattvic qualities, purity, sharing and selfless service. Jai Bhagavan.